After years of development and months of testing, NASA's SLS rocket finally had its opportunity to rip into the sky night at 1:47 on November 16, 2022, brighter than any previous rocket in terms of flame. The strongest aircraft to have ever taken from Earth. Incredible fireworks were displayed, but that was just the start of the most significant space mission that NASA has undertaken in a long time. For many reasons, Artemis 1 is a historic flight. All eyes will be on the Orion spacecraft as it embarks on a 25-day voyage into deep space now that the SLS has demonstrated its mettle. A very busy few weeks lie ahead for Artemis 1 and its workforce of mannequins, bacteria, and measuring instruments. Here is all the information you need to know about the Artemis 1's flight. Therefore, the dramatic launch of this enormous rocket ship is what everyone will first recall about the Artemis 1. We witnessed a textbook NASA launch on November 16 after a notorious run of failed starts. The entire process went without a hitch. Unfortunately, their ideal launch window occurred to be available at 1 in the morning East Coast time. But if they had to do that to launch this initiative, then so be it. Naturally, all rocket launches are thrilling and quite impressive. However, the SLS's two-side booster are unlikely anything we've ever seen. A huge column of fire and smoke carried Artemis into the heavens. The launch of this rocket was the brightest one to date, illuminating the Florida coast and turning night into day. The little of most potent rocket motor ever launched was won by these solid rocket boosters. The original space shuttle design was upgraded to SLS with 20% more power. The 4RS-25 hydrogen engine hardly registered as a flame due to the side booster's intense brightness. There was a spectacular moment when the side boosters separated from the core stage, and you could see them still trailing enormous sparks as they descended back to Earth and splashed into the sea. Following that, the SLS's hydrogen-burning core stage resumed its ascent into space, providing the Orion spacecraft with the necessary velocity to leave the atmosphere before the core split. At that enormous, well-known booster also came back to Earth and splashed down. The intermediate cryogenic propulsion stage then took control. In essence, this is merely an additional RL-10 rocket engine that uses the same liquid hydrogen fuel as the core booster. To prevent it from falling back down as the core stage does, this stage of rocket must first race on the Orion spacecraft into a low Earth orbit. The ICP then launches the Orion into a translunar injection orbit after roughly 20 minutes have passed. We then witness the last stage of stage separation. After successfully bringing the Orion to the moon, the ICP is released from Orion and now truly performs a second duty. The ICP is packed with CubeSats, miniature satellites that will launch when it flies into cislunar orbit. After erecting a 925 square foot solar sail, one of those CubeSats, the NEA Scout, is currently en route to explore an asteroid that is close to Earth. Another, the Lunar Ice Cube, will orbit the moon for 7 hours while using the infrared spectrometer to look for water in all of its forms. And after being launched, the CUSP satellite will continue to orbit the sun to study solar radiation, solar winds, and other solar phenomena. Thus, that is where we are at the moment, since Apollo, the biggest, heaviest spacecraft, has been traveling to the moon. The service module has its rocket engine, which will make a few more burns to set the final route around the moon. Here are the upcoming Artemis 1 milestone that we are anticipating. Orion will fly by the moon as its closest point on Monday, November 21st, 6 days after launch, passing within 60 miles, 100 km of lunar surface. Therefore, keep an eye out for that. The gravity of the moon will be used during this flyby maneuver to launch Orion into a distant region of space. On day 10, November 25, the service module's rocket engine will make another burn, and it will put the spacecraft into a far-off retrograde orbit, elevating it to a height of 61,000 kilometers. On day 13, Orion will surpass Apollo 13's record and travel the farthest distance from Earth for a crew-rated spacecraft. It will be nearly 300,000 miles or 480 kilometers from the planet's surface. Now, Apollo 13 didn't intend to travel that far from Earth. In a desperate attempt to escape their dying spacecraft and return to Earth before they all perished, they tried to slingshot around the moon. And this is when things really start to get interesting for Artemis 1 crew. Yes, there are no individuals on board, but the Orion capsule is carrying a very significant crew. Mannequin Campus is seated in the commander's chair and strapped in. This person bears the name Arturo Campus in honor of electrical engineer who played a significant role in Apollo 13's mission successful return to Earth. He didn't appear in a Tom Hanks film, I believe, but he is now, at last, receiving credits for Artemis 1. The mannequin has sensors in its seat that record vibrations and gravimetric forces during the flight in addition to internal radiation detectors. The purpose of Artemis 1 is to test this flight technology in preparation for its use as a crew capsule in the future. The two ghost mannequins are with our man Campus. Helga, and Zohar are these. They lack spacesuits and limbs. They are simply torso buns that can each have 34 active dosimeters and over 6,000 passive sensors. They are radiation measurement sensors. Building components that resemble human bone and muscle tissue were used to construct Helga and Zohar. This part of the torsos that are unique to female anatomy are present. They will investigate the efficacy of specialized radiation vests known as Astro Rod to simulate ovaries and breast tissue, which are more sensitive to radiation. If the spacecraft were to be struck by a radiation even in deep space, it is hoped that the Astro Rod will be able to effectively shield the astronauts' important organs from radiation. Therefore, Helga will act as a control and only Zohar will wear the Astro Rod vest. Researchers will compare the mannequins' radiation exposure once they are back on Earth, and the Artemis 1 crew consists of more people than just mannequins. There is a life inside that capsule. 12 packets of bakery yeast were incorporated by scientists into Artemis 1 payload. The goal is to use microbe as a stand-in for actual people to get better picture of how radiation from deep space will affect living things. The moon plants are another interesting experiment being conducted. On board Artemis 1, there are 10 tree seeds. 5 different species of tree seeds, including loblolly pine, American sycamore, sweet gum, giant sequoia, and Douglas fir, are offered by the USDA Forest Service. The seeds are supposed to fly around the moon before being deposited here on Earth. This has been done before with seeds carried on Apollo 14 in 1971. Nothing like that will happen to them as they develop. It serves as a more tangible reminder of what we can accomplish as a team. Concerning sentimental goods, Artemis 1 is also carrying along a few mementos from earlier lunar missions. The official flight kit contains several little relics from the collection of the National Air and Space Museum. A bolt from the F-1 rocket engine of the Apollo 11 was discovered 10 years ago on the ocean floor. A commercial mission patch from the Apollo 17 mission was purchased at Kennedy Space Center at 1970s, together with an Apollo 8 commemorative coin that was manufactured in part with metal from the Apollo 8 mission. Additionally, they brought Snoopy with them. That's accurate. For many years, NASA's human spaceflight program has a de facto mascot in the form of Charlie Brown's sidekick. The 1969-built lunar module Apollo 10 Snoopy bestows the Silver Snoopy Award in honor of an individual's outstanding contributions. In Artemis 1, a stuffed Snoopy wearing his orange spacesuit is currently floating around. When the capsule arrived in an orbit after taking a dip into interstellar space, he was used scientifically as zero-G indicator. Orion will start its engine on day 16, December 1, for a departure burn that will put it on course for a second flyby of the moon on day 20. Orion will then embark on its return trip to Earth with one last push of the engine. Now, before we fly higher with our anticipated events in this video, please give a thumbs up if you're enjoying this video so far, and stay tuned until the very end to find out the launch date of Artemis 2. On December 11, 2022, Orion will return to Earth and slam into the atmosphere at a speed of roughly 25,000 miles per hour or 40,000 kilometers per hour, the fastest re-entry speed ever attempted at this point. As a result, the heat shield on the capsule, which can withstand temperatures of up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 2,750 degrees Celsius, will be put to test. The Artemis 1 mission will then come to an end when Orion splashes down in the Pacific Ocean under parachute protection. But in reality, Artemis 1 only marks the start of a new phase in human spaceflight. We may start reading Artemis 2, the first crewed trip of the SLS and Orion spacecraft, based on what scientists from all across the globe can learn from this test flight. This time, Artemis 2 will be an 8-day mission that will deliver as the last data we need to establish that Artemis is capable of sending people to the moon's surface. Artemis 2 will fly in a manner identical to the start of Artemis 1, but it will this time bring humans into lunar space for the first time. There will be 4 astronauts on board Artemis 2, although the crew has not yet been announced, 1 from the Canadian Space Program and 3 from the NASA. We essentially gave them another robotic arm in exchange for the Lunar Gateway Station and trip to the moon. I think it's a really good offer. A projected launch date of 2024 has been set, assuming that Artemis 2 is prepared to take off based on all data from Artemis 1. While we won't likely get the answer for several months, we have a lot to look forward to as we follow Artemis 1 on its trip across outer space. Now, do you think that the projected launch date for Artemis 2 in 2024 will be followed? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel for more technology updates and like and share this video. Now, do you want to know more some SpaceX updates for 2023? If yes, then click and watch the next video here.